just going to ask Kirsten to join again with us, and then we'll get going shortly. Welcome, everybody. Now, Kirsten.
There she is!
Right. Can you hear?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let me put that on my stand again. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You're so welcome. Hello, Nisreen. Hi, Mademoiselle. Thank you all for joining. This is great.
Yes, I'm so looking forward.
Yes, I'm so excited. I always get a little nervous with these technical things.
So I was just thinking that
around me, just in case.
Wonderful. I was just thinking that, isn't that actually the universe corresponding and giving a wonderful example? And this is what I'm telling. I told that my students in a masterclass very recently. I had technical issues as well. Actually, in the middle of the masterclass, everything went down. And of course, there's this short moment of panic. But then I was just thinking, okay, let me walk my talk. Let me breathe. Let me go in the grounding. It's going to come on again. Yeah. And that's what it's about, no?
Yes. I think that's such an important lesson for us all. Of imperfect all of these practices are, and that really anything we're talking about today is a work in progress, and it changes every minute, every hour, every day, and we just keep coming back to ourselves and be kind and reconnect. And yes, it's a perfect example of that this morning.
To not panic and just hang in there. I mean, I'm sure we're going to touch that throughout the talk, but this is, you know, life is presenting those things on a smaller and on a larger scale, no? Where we need the grounding.
Yes, and generally the things that we need practice in present themselves very frequently. So
now here we are.
Yeah, so lovely. So happy to have so many people join already. Please do keep joining and share the word. And I guess I'll introduce myself briefly, and then Kirsten, you might do the same. And we'll maybe introduce the topic, and we'll just have a lovely chat today about the theme of grounding and protecting, and how we can invite a sense of joy into attracting abundance into our life. And this is such an exciting topic. It's mind-blowing. It's so heartfelt, and it's something I'm really passionate about, and I think Kirsten, you are as well. So I'm really excited to chat about this morning. So my name is Karen, and who am I? I'm a woman. First and foremost, I'm a woman here today, and I'm also a mother. And I guess from a young age, I've had a real curiosity about the natural world and how it reminds us to connect to ourselves. And I've been working and had a curiosity of working with women now for over 20 years. And I just love women. And I also love men. And I love how we commune as men and women together, and how we can learn from each other. And through my journey of working as a mindfulness coach and with herbal medicine, and more lately as a midwife, I keep coming back to the simple skills in life. You know, how can we become more embodied so that we can actually listen to our own inner wisdom and empower ourselves to live fully? And when I mean live fully, that changes from moment to moment. But how can we live from a place of heartfulness and groundedness so that we can really fulfill our dreams? And dreams also change, but it's following our soul calling and having the courage to engage with that. And there's so many beautiful, simple skills that everyone can learn, and everything is already within us and around us to support us in that. And I just have so much gratitude that I have the capacity to connect to that, and really invite you all to remind yourself of this beautiful gift we have in life, to connect to ourselves and our surrounding environment. So that's me for now. And Kirsten, I'm so excited to be in the same room with you here. As women, I think it's so important we witness each other and support each other, and that just feels really, really special. So please, I'd love to hear about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so happy we made this happen. No? We've been talking about that for a while now, and finally we're here together. It's beautiful. And I loved how you put it, that everything is already there. And this is something that I'm strongly sharing as well in my coaching, in my books, in my trainings, because it is something we all have a grand potential. We all have so many tools in us, but we forget, no? Because sometimes life presents us with things from the outside, or we have a difficult start. And this is something, just to introduce myself for those who don't know me, that I'm a living example that no matter what the start into your life is like, and I've had a very difficult start. I come from a very difficult family background. I had to undergo severe trauma in my childhood, in my early youth, in my early 20s, strong abuse, strong substance abuse, strong neglection. It wasn't glamour and glitter and butterflies. It was very difficult, and things could have gone very, very wrong for me in my life. Actually, there were people in my childhood, in my youth, who were predicting a very bad life for me.
Yes.
But something inside me was there, and actually one of my spiritual teachers during my 7 years that I spent in India, I studied Advaita Vedanta philosophy, the healing arts, Ayurveda, yoga, meditation in depth for almost 30 years now. And one of my gurus actually told me, well, you are a very old soul, and it's your dharma, it's your purpose in life to have this very difficult start, to make it through, and then afterwards to share what has saved yourself to others. And this is something that I've been passionately doing for over 20 years now. Actually, my spiritual name, Karuna, that I got given 15 years ago by my spiritual teacher, means empathy and love for all living beings. And this is something that I love doing, and I kind of want to support every person I touch, not by putting something on them, but giving them the safety and letting them know, no matter what you're going through, no matter what's in your mind, there is a way out. And as you already stated so beautifully, everyone can learn those tools, no? Everyone has the way out, and everyone can do that. And it doesn't matter how difficult your life seems at the moment, there is a way out, and you can turn it into something beautiful. You can turn any pain into power. And that's what I've been sharing for a long time through my yoga teaching, through my books, through corporations like with yourself, with beautiful products like this Chakrati. But over the last 2 years, I have developed beautiful online coaching programs as well, where I'm basically sharing the process that has saved my life over the last 30 years with women internationally now.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Kirsten. Oh, that's just so beautiful. I'm really moved by that, actually. And I think what you're expressing so gorgeously there is that many of these traditions that we're going to be touching on today are as old as the universe themselves. And what I find really exciting is that often people see more esoteric ancient traditions as separate from science. But what I'm finding so fascinating at the moment is that whilst the more traditional traditions allow us to explore that we can keep returning to self, science has since also proven that our brain, far from being a rigid item, organ, is that it's actually bendable. It's plasticity in it. You know, it can mold, which means even if we have a bad day, even if we have traumatic experiences, and I could share some as well, that actually that is not final for our lives. We can actually retrain our neural pathways. We can open our hearts. We can reconnect to ourselves, and we can actually create a new reality, that is far beyond any sufferings that we might have experienced. And rather than just seeing it, I guess, as suffering, seeing it as a really potent learning experience, so that we can actually hold space and be present with things that aren't so pleasant, so that we can, even in the presence of deep trauma and difficulty, connect to joy. And that's so beautiful for me, you know, that we can find joy even in these darkest moments.
Exactly.
You know, and that's so, so important, isn't it? And it's actually
Yeah.
a necessity. It's not just a potential, it's a necessity.
It is, and it is there. It is so available, you know, and the at least a beauty and a potential to learn and to grow and to evolve in painful moments. I like to give the example of the one of the biggest pains that we have is when we face the disease of a beloved one, or a dying parent, a dying family member. This is one of the greatest fears that we have, and this is some of the most painful moments on the maximum end that a human being can experience. But when you have really integrated what you were just sharing so beautifully, then there can be learning in that, there can be a beauty in that, there can be gratitude, rather than seeing the loss and the pain of losing somebody or of undergoing through a disease, is stepping back a little bit and finding the gratitude for having had that person in your life. Or disease. I mean, diseases nowadays, there's so many mental diseases, there's so many stress-related diseases that I see my clients, most of them have stress-related diseases if they are unwell in their body. And the beauty here can be to ask, why is that? Why has my body developed the disease? Why do I show physical symptoms? Because my mind and my soul are suffering so much from something in the outside, or from some of my behaviors, some of my beliefs that result in certain patterns that I keep repeating that are so unhealthy for my body that I start to develop a disease, you know? And as you are said, all these holistic healing methods, they have been around forever, you know. And I'm fond of, we've been talking about that previously, and I'm so fond of how nowadays modern science is actually starting to prove what, for example, the old yogis have been sharing, you know. Of course there have been different wording, but I'm obsessed with modern science and modern medicine that are proving what is happening in the brain, the neuroplasticity, that we can rewire our brain and that we can reprogram our patterns. And it's beautiful. I think we're living in a time where it's no longer either or, either school medicine or healing, holistic healing, but it's blending together. And I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it, because I feel that you're feeling it as well. We're so on the same path here. And it's an exciting time that we are in.
Yes, and I think we'll go to our key topics now as well, but to just finish on this thread, and I could talk about this literally forever. So it's something I'm so acutely passionate about, because I guess what we've seen over the years is an exaggeration of sometimes what separates us, or maybe an illusion of what separates us. And I've had the great gift to grow up both with a lot of nature around me and a lot of science around me. And therefore, I never really had a bias towards either. And when you bring that curiosity, and I think curiosity is such a lovely word, you bring a curiosity to looking at something in a new way. You don't have to believe it, you don't have to understand it yet, but just an opening, just a little curiosity to go, gosh, maybe we're talking about the same thing. Maybe it's okay to believe in both. And how would it feel to bring them together? How would it feel if we can sit opposite each other and actually notice what connects us rather than what separates us? And it might be just that you both enjoy jelly tots, you know. But, you know, it could be something really simple, the local. But when we notice what connects us, we have a possibility of bringing union. And that's just so beautiful. So welcome everybody. For anyone who's just joined us, you are so, so welcome. And we will leave a little bit of time at the end for answering some of your gorgeous questions coming in and reflections. Really, really appreciating that. So I guess the topics that we wanted to touch on today is some simple skills that can allow us to reconnect. And also bringing in a curiosity, how can we strive towards our dream without being too attached that it has to be hard work, that it has to be difficult? How can we maybe bring a sense of joy and abundance in? And I guess when we speak about abundance, whereas it's very much also about having sufficient funds and money in our lives, because let's face it, that allows us to fulfill our dreams, but also to be in service to our communities. But it's also bringing in a curiosity, what is abundance for you? You know, maybe it can be an abundance of love. Maybe it can be an abundance of flowers in your garden. But whatever it is, how can we change our perceptions around bringing joy and abundance back into our lives? And I was reflecting before I came on, and as I was mentioning earlier, I do always get a little nervous when I'm seen. That's one of my stories from being a young girl. So what I tend to do these days is I take myself out into the garden, and I literally did that 9:45. I was like, oh my God, it's starting. I'm freaking out. The imposter syndrome crept in, you know, and I was like, that's okay. So I stepped into the garden and I took my shoes off and I planted them both firmly on the ground, and I used breath. Mm-hmm. And this has probably been the most powerful tool I've had since I'm very, very young. And I've been living with a certain anxiety for most of my life. And I guess what's really helped me, especially in the last kind of 10 years, is the empowering skill of knowing that I can change that every moment. I don't have to stay in that state of anxiety. You know, I can plant deeply again, smell the flowers, and I do it frequently. In fact, I was just sharing with a friend what I do most frequently is go out and smell the herbs around me to read, you know. Mm-hmm. So when we talk, I guess, about grounding, and I can't wait to hear your side of it as well, Kirsten. Rather than it being a really abstract concept, it's literally about feeling your body in the present moment and where it connects to the boundaries around you. So it's as simple as feeling your feet connecting with the earth or the floor or your couch and bringing presence to it. That's the first step, really, you know, and that bringing sensation presence to your feet is so powerful. And from there, you can then imagine growing roots deeper into the ground and anchoring and all of that. And I suppose you'll also have heard a lot about earthing. And earthing, similar to grounding, I guess when we go into fight or flight, when we get anxious, when we get nervous, when we leave our body, we have a lot of excess energy that tends to take us into our brain or actually out of our body. So we either have an excess of feeling or no feeling at all. And it has been proven that there's elements in earth, in soil and in grass that actually allow that excess energy to flow into the earth, and it helps us to just balance again. So that's why it sounds really simplistic, but really there's a lot of science behind it.
It is. And this is what I was saying, right? Like the ancient yogis, they have been, when I started yoga 30 years ago, these scientific proofs, they hadn't been there. You know, I learned the old ways, and this is what the old yogis have been talking about, grounding forever. But nowadays, science, these elements that you were talking about, these are actually free electrons that are inside the ground, and there is literally speaking, an exchange of energy between our physical body and the earth underneath when you walk bare feet on the grass. Like every gardener, they have a higher immune system. They have a better health This is scientifically proven nowadays. And this is not just because it's joy and it's nice and it's healthy to grow your own vegetables, but actually digging your hands into the ground, getting your hands dirty, getting your bare feet on the grass. There's literally an exchange of free electrons between the body and the physical earth. So there is this element, but what I find really important as well, because nowadays so many people, and I already saw some questions here in the chat while you were talking that I would like to address in a second, by Nisreen, and Lai Fugi is also saying neuroplasticity is so interesting. And this is what happens in the brain. You got to imagine your brain, and everyone watching and listening, you can try that next time you find yourself stressed or anxious about something. Let's take a simple example. Maybe some of you are watching from your offices today. There are so many stressful situations throughout the day that put our body into fight or flight mode that you were talking about. And obviously, we don't always have the chance when we're in an office in a city to go out into nature, into the garden and ground ourselves. So what is very important is to practice and to train this process of grounding and earthing when you have the chance to go to nature in such an aware way that you can transmute it into something that happens automatically when you are finding yourself in a stressful situation, let's say in your office. Mm-hmm. Because this is when you need it most.
Yes.
Because when you too often get into this fight or flight response, your system is reacting, you start developing stress-related diseases and so on. Mm-hmm. So this is what I was meaning when I was talking about bringing everything together. So those small habits, for example, the grounding, going into nature, feeling the ground, really feeling your body, becoming aware of your breath, and then storing that in your conscious mind, really becoming aware. This can be trained very easily when you have a good guidance. Becoming really aware of what is happening in your body. Observe your breath slowing down. Observe your nervous system going down. Observe your physical reaction to your mental change, you know, how your whole adrenal system, nervous system is calming down. And this can then be transported to the office when you're in the desk. Once you have practiced this often enough, the neural pathway, I like to give the example, turns from a little sand path, you know, when you're walking in sand and your footsteps, they get blown away by the wind very quickly. This is when you do something 1 or 2 times, it gets lost very easily. But when you keep repeating those things, when you practice, for example, the grounding and the earthing on a regular basis, and you decide, because you want to get into this transformation, when you make the conscious decision to take that into your everyday life, what is then going to happen when you find yourself in a stressful situation? Rather than your body and your mind going into the stress response, you can trigger a different automated response, which is the grounding one and the earthing one. And although your feet are on a stone floor or on a wooden floor and maybe squished in your shoes in the winter, your physical reaction will be like you are standing in the ground on the grass. Yeah. And this is a very first, very important step that I put before any work with any of my clients. This is a process I'm taking them through, because you really, you accelerate and you improve anything that you do when you put this process before anything you do. Like when I was hosting big shows in front of 3,000, 10,000 people on stages, you better be grounded there. And I would literally be in my evening dress or in my gown, you know, people around screaming, the audience applauding, everyone waiting for you to start talking. This is a tense moment. But with my eyes open, I would do this grounding exercise. And when you have practiced it enough, this can be done in split seconds. It actually runs like an automated, you know, like a sound wave underneath everything you do. and you can integrate it into everything you do. This is so important at your workspace, when you are in communication with your boss, with colleagues, when you have an argument with your partner, when your children are pulling on you, whatever drags your energy. When you put yourself into that grounded state, the physical reaction, the mind-body reaction will be a different one from a grounded state than when you're not in a grounded state. So this is actually not even esoteric. It works. It is there. It's a fact.
Yes. Yes. Loving this. It so resonates, and very much from my own experience as well. And I guess what I'd like to add to that is that, you know, I remember when my kids were young, and you know, before that I was sitting every day, full hour meditating, yoga practice, all of this, getting up at 5 a.m. But suddenly this all fell away, you know, and all I had was 5-minute pockets in my day. And I remember giving myself a really hard time that I was letting my practice go, until something in me realized that all I need to do is start with my 3 to 5 minutes. And I guess this is really important for people starting out with mindfulness or grounding practices or any practice. It's enough to turn up every day, you know, for 5 minutes. But what happens, as Kirsten is saying, when this neuroplasticity kicks in, when these new neural pathways are starting to be created, your mind will, as a decor, want to go back to this new, more pleasant neural pathway, actually. And what I found is that actually I just kept making more room in my life again to extend my practice. So I wasn't like, oh my God, I have to fit it in the car, I have to do this. But it was suddenly, do you know what? I'm going to get up 20 minutes early. I'm going to let my family know that I'm doing my practice, and it takes some time, because at the minute in the beginning there will still be kids running in, and that's okay. They can sit in your lap if they're young. If they're older, they'll understand. You'll still have your husband knocking, going, are you nearly ready yet? But eventually what I found was happened is that people go, oh, mom's doing her morning practice. I'm going to give her some space. And it became from a repetitive thing that I choose to do, from something that I constantly prioritized. And like Kirsten said, suddenly this was something then that I also did at home, but then did 5 minutes before I went into work. And I gave myself moments of breathers at work where I just would simply breathe. And it's incredible. You suddenly see yourself in the garden. You actually feel your feet against the soil. You can smell the flowers. But what I'd love to share with you, because I work in a really busy environment in a normal hospital, as well as doing beautiful workshops for women, and you know, promoting teas and blending teas, is that there is a few little simple things of how you can bring some part of that self in. And what I've done recently is literally picked some flowers and herbs from the garden, put them in a large clear water bottle and filled it, and I just leave it in the staff room. And when I notice my fight or flight kicking in a little, just a little flutter where I'm going, oh yeah, here we go, time to ground, just taking a sip of that or having a smell of it, it's so amazing. And I guess that's where the beautiful Be Better chakra range comes in, that ourselves as Solaris and the beautiful Kirsten, we've co-created together, is that there are simple ways of activating our limbic system and our parasympathetic system, and a lot of them are very sensual and sensory. So what happens when we smell beautiful aromatherapy, or sip at a herbal tea that has lots of essential oils in it, or even the feeling of the silkiness of a tea gliding down your throat, wearing something nice and soft that you might even, if you can't wear it because you have a uniform, putting it in your pocket. These send little mini signals to your nervous system to come back into the parasympathetic. And it's just so simple and effective and so quick how we can change it. And the other interesting thing, and I think it was Nasreen, you mentioned it, you know, how long do we need to live with pain? Yes. And take the positive. So there's a very interesting thing that does happen when we're too often in an overstimulated adrenal place, when we're too much in the sympathetic system of where we feel we're in danger. And this comes from cave living, from tribal living, where we had actual dangers, such as wild animals, difficulties within the tribe or whatever. It's not that dissimilar than how we live today in many ways, but is that we react as if our life is in danger when we actually aren't. And it's very interesting what happens is because what happens is that our cortisol levels increase, which is an inflammatory factor. So we will actually quite physically feel pain because we have now created, through this excess of sympathetic nervous system, actual inflammation in our body. So we will physically feel pain, not just emotional pain, but if this goes on and on, we will literally have an achy knee. And, you know, I'm sure you might have noticed after a massive argument with a partner or a difficult situation with a colleague that we may suddenly have pain somewhere in our body.
And
so yeah, go on.
yeah. And it's amazing that you're touching this point, because this is so important. This is why so many holistic healers state that most of diseases that people have are man-made, because very, very often, not with everything, but with most diseases, they come from within. And even if it is just that our beliefs lead to patterns that reduce our immune system in a way that we get more receptive for diseases. When our immune system is strong enough, and when we are in a Säurebasen, I don't know the English word for that right away, basisch.
Age, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. So exactly, when we keep an equilibrium in our physical body, then most of diseases, they don't even have a chance. Most autoimmune diseases, they have a chance because we have weakened our immune system because of often unconscious behavioral patterns. And this is something that Nisrin was asking, how long does it take to come from this pain into power? And this is very much, you cannot put a number on that. So often my students ask me that, and I'm telling them you cannot put a number on that. It's like with everything. If somebody wants to become a tennis champion, if they train for 8 hours on the court every single day, their learning curve will go up more. So it is always about how much you put in, how much you will get out. And it is important to start with all these small little helpers, like you were saying, like the tea, like some jewelry that gives us good energy. But it's very important, like I said, that you really make a commitment, that you make a decision for yourself, and that you especially decide to persevere on those days when you're lacking motivation, because these are the dangerous days, you know. And Jenna, hey Jenna, was making a beautiful statement regarding that as well. I guess to put oneself in a mood of radical acceptance reduces suffering. Yes and no. You want to accept. You can't fight the situation. When you are fighting the situation that you are in, you are creating resistance. You won't have a chance to get into the flow. But on the other hand, it's also definitely not about just accepting everything and just surrendering to your so-called destiny, but to be very aware that you are the creator of your destiny. When you understand and when you integrate into your mind and your subconscious that you create the way your body feels like, you create your state of health, you create what your mind looks like, and you can change everything that doesn't feel good at the moment, you can change it. And Nesrin, to answer your questions, it depends on how big the pain is, how large your problem is, how difficult your circumstances are. This determines, of course, the length. Some problems, I sometimes work with people in a one-on-one session, and they cry after an hour because they say, oh my God, I've been walking around with this for 20 years and it's just dissolved within 1 hour. So some things, they can just disappear or vanish within a very short amount of time. But when it has been beliefs or patterns that have been formed over decades, because maybe you were brought up in a certain way and very negative self-talk, negative self-perception has been put deeply into your mind, of course this takes a little while to unlearn that, to first recognize the beliefs that are provoking a certain behavior that ends up in negative results in your life, identify them, peacefully remove them, not fighting, but here we come to the surrendering, to accepting, and then sustainably replace them with positive beliefs and positive patterns. And if this has been a big trauma, of course it takes a while. You know, I've been working on certain things for 10, 12 years. And here comes in the persistence and the dedication and the decision. You need to really want to make your life better. It's not going to happen over a weekend if you have a big trauma, you know.
The want to step out of pain,
yes.
And that's not a simplification of pain, because we all live with daily pain. But sometimes the neural pathway has gotten so strong through trauma and experiences that we get somewhat nearly attached to experiencing pain. It's nearly like a little addiction, you know, and it's just the easier pathway. So we keep returning to the old habit, to the old pattern, because we're a little attached to our identity of living with pain. And we have all had difficult circumstances. I doubt there is anyone on today or who may have wanted to join and maybe didn't quite have the courage to join, or thought, oh, is this really for me? You know, and there's many out there where it is okay to go back to old patterns, but it's about taking each moment as it comes and going, okay, but I will start again today, and I'm going to continue, because actually these glimpses of pleasure I'm getting from this new pathway, from this new commitment of fulfilling my dreams and actually letting my identity that's attached to pain go, is really worth it. And I want to turn up for myself today. And when I turn up for myself, and I think you'll agree, Kirsten, it's so important to start by turning up for yourself before anyone else. Then once you do this often enough, you become so aware with a consciousness of your pattern. And this is so important. The early stages really are about noticing the thoughts, you know, and often in meditation, we think, oh, meditation is sitting there with an absence of feeling or thought. But actually what happens is that your mind just goes, wow, and chat, 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 chat. And you're like, oh my God, I'm terrible at meditation. I'm not doing it anymore, you know? So I always invite my clients, and in my women's circles, I go, okay, you know, we're going to connect now. And actually, we're going to give ourselves permission to briefly listen to our thoughts. And then we're going to let them float on. And no, we can go back to that if we want later. But we just give ourselves permission for a moment to try it in a different way. And what happens, the more we become aware of it then, is that, oh, it just becomes a necessity to keep working towards that feeling of joy. And suddenly we realize, wow, it has a positive impact on my children, how I relate to them, to my partner, how I relate to them, to my work colleagues. And also what you will notice is that by giving yourself this positive regard, this permission of joy in yourself, that you will also start attracting it towards you.
Absolutely.
And it's
absolutely
so beautiful, you know?
Yeah. You know, I just heard in another interview I did recently, I heard a beautiful expression. I love that. I'm using it all the time ever since. We were talking about frequency, how to raise your frequency and how to tune yourself like a radio antenna, how to tune yourself into a frequency that attracts, like, you know, like people say, when you focus on shit, you attract shit. When you focus on positive, you attract positive. And I heard this beautiful explanation, which works better in English than in German. Your frequency is what you frequently see. So you can either walk through life with a positive or with a negative filter. And here we come again with the positive or negative beliefs, you know. if you are very suspicious against people and you walk around with like, everything's so negative, I don't like that, he's talking about me, or, you know, ugh, this is what you attract. This is what your surrounding looks like. And in the same situation, another person with a positive filter might be in exact the same situation and think, oh my God, it's so beautiful today. Look at the sunshine, look at the butterflies. And this is not about being naive and just seeing everything positive, but you always have a choice in any situation. We have a choice. We are not victims, we are creators. And we can choose. Let's take the example of a painful situation. You were giving the beautiful example of your family. You know, the kids coming in when you want to do your meditation, you can either go, oh my God, I never have a moment to myself. This is so annoying, and have yourself drawn out. Or you can go like, look at these beautiful beings who came out of my womb. Isn't that a miracle? Yes, I have a little less time to myself, but I have created life itself. And you see such a shift in those small things that, again, you can transport to any situation, you know? And here again, regularity is key. And with meditation, you're actually touching a very important point, because so many people, they get scared or they are reluctant when they hear the word meditation. So often I hear people say, oh, I'm way too hibbelig, I'm way too nervous to do meditation. I can never do that, you know? And it's a very simple thing to start with baby steps and extend them. And you were saying those moments of joy, you get drawn to them. And I would even say you get actually addicted to them.
Yes.
When you allow yourself to start with 2 minutes, everyone can sit still for 2 minutes, even if you have back pain, even if you have knee problems, even if you have super nervous, 2 minutes can be done by everyone. Breathing for 2 minutes, finding the peace for 2 minutes, and taking it from there. And you will become addicted to this positive effect on your body, on your mind. And again, here, to bring it back to what we started with, when you do this from a grounded state, it is so much easier when you take a minute to ground yourself before going into your sitting practice. Then you become literally, I love to work with images. Maybe you start to see that. You know, when you when you imagine a big stone in a river is so heavy and it's just sitting on the ground, and it doesn't matter if there's a lot of water washing over it on the ground, or just a little bit, or if it is dry, it is just sitting there. It is grounded, it is solid. And this is what you can do with your thoughts. You were giving the example of this. We actually have up to 50,000 thoughts per day. Can you imagine that? It's a circus in our head. And when you visualize yourself being this fat, big stone on the ground of a river, and your thoughts that are coming, they are just the wild river washing over you. It doesn't matter if they are positive or negative. For this 2 minutes, you can even allow yourself to just be with your fear and your anxiety, because so many people, they get stressed by, oh my God, I have to have positive thoughts now, but I'm so sad, I'm so scared, I'm so angry, I'm so whatever, depressed, right? And if you just allow yourself to have whatever is there washing over you while you are solidly grounded like a stone rock in a river, that's a good way to start. And that's a beautiful foundation to build on, right? And yes, Jenna, energy flows where attention goes, and you can bring your attention to your groundedness and then have everything grow from there.
And that's, again, I guess, coming back to the plant world and to breath, and as you're so beautifully saying there, where the attention goes, that's, I guess, where the whole concept of what we probably call the modern mindfulness practice comes to. And I quite love this idea of presencing, you know, because we may not always have time for meditation as such, or that, you know, but we always have time, whether we're in the office, standing at a busy metro station, you know, with the kids bouncing around us after all, you know, wherever it is, we do have time for presencing, you know, and that's where simply feeling the sensation, exactly feeling the emotion for a minute. And I think, you know, often we react before we have even identified what's bothering us. But if we can bring presence to that emotion, if we can bring presence to the sensation, and just for a minute breathe into it, feel into it, smell something that helps to reconnect, touch something that reconnects. And sometimes it's as simple as touching our hand, because we may not have a beautiful flower or a lovely tea or anything like this, but, you know, even just stroking your hands, pressing so we can feel that, stroking your hair, you know, just allows us to get a moment of pause. And I'm so passionate about finding pause before we react, because we will have hundreds and thousands of thoughts and triggers all day long. But we can choose with training and persistence and want how we react, you know.
100%. Yeah, and it can become
neural pathways come in again, because actually we go quicker to a positive reaction than to a suboptimal. I won't even call it negative, but you know, something that will make us feel even more ungrounded. That pathway, you can focus it here and go, breath. Okay. So I'm feeling really angry right now. Wow, that feels overwhelming. I really, really want to shout at my partner, you know? Actually, I'm quite trying to be punching my boss right now. And you're like, oh my God, am I actually having those thoughts?
Yeah.
And oh, whoa, okay, that's all right. But, you know, obviously you can't punch. Shouting might happen, not optimal. But you could choose to go, oh, wow, I'm really noticing that I'm feeling quite overwhelmed just now. And you can say that out, you know?
Yeah.
And
actually,
you know, okay.
100%. And actually, yes. I even believe there is, you know, when I was living in India, I was doing these primeval trainings. And I actually think the shouting is okay. You know, if we want to develop a certain strength, and let's face it, let's be real, creating abundance, and depending, you were stating that in the beginning beautifully, this is something different for everyone. One person feels abundant when they have a beautiful garden, another one wants to create a business to sustain for their life. I'm a single working mother, I need to provide for my child, you know, I got bills to pay. So it's a business. And somebody, another person wants to build a big house, you know, this is what they understand from abundance, and that requires strength. So to generate that strength is also actually necessary to tap into our warrior self. We all have yin and yang. Every woman has a male and a female aspect. Every man has a male and a female aspect. That's normal. And so many women, they don't allow themselves to tap into their yang aspect, into their warrioress, into that fierce femme power. And the screaming here can actually be very helpful. Of course, not at your partner, of course, not at your little children. But have you ever tried going to a jungle and screaming at the top of your lungs? This is so powerful. I love it. So powerful. And that's something that I do on my teacher trainings. Yes. I actually, everyone who's done a training with me, they must be laughing now when they see that. I take them out barefoot on the grass and we run around like crazy people. I tell them, don't bother what other people think of you. This is something you want to get rid of anyways for the rest of your life. And just scream at the top of your lungs. And this again does something to your nervous system that is giving you this strong yang, fierce, warriorous energy that will then help you to protect your power as well. Because it's not always easy, and building a business, every entrepreneur, everyone who's self-employed knows we need to go beyond our regular strength and beyond our power. And every working mother knows what I'm talking about. I mean, everyone who's taking care of a child and running a business or being employed, there's never time off. You're on duty 24/7, right? So I really, really bow to every single working mother, because it's incredible what you do. And to tap into that source of strength can also come with allowing yourself, when there is anger or when there is rage, to tap into that male energy, not becoming violent at all, but create a room for that. And then after that, when it's not about putting a lid on those emotions, right? Because this will create disease as well. So let it out somewhere, and then take a step back and ask the question, why? Why am I angry here? What is triggering me? What inside my partner might need addressing? What inside my children might need addressing? Or is it my own trigger response? What inside myself might need healing? Which aspect of me brings out the anger? Is this helplessness? Is this an old wound? Whatever, right? And here again, we come into this holistic, embracing every aspect of ourselves, and then non-violently. It's always a two-sided sword, right? There's this self-improvement, self-optimization. It needs to be done to grow. If we want to grow, if we want to evolve, we need to optimize and repair and heal certain aspects of ourselves. But at the same time, it's not about becoming perfect. Nobody ever will be perfect. It's about accepting our weaknesses and our wounds and our flaws and the things we don't do right,
kindness
right now. But
kindness.
we might, it's so important. But take a step back, ask yourself, why? Why is my boss triggering me? And how can I, if I want to change it, not I have to, if I want to change it, how can I get there?
Yes.
And that's
I think
a beautiful, holistic way.
And this is, I think, because I've noticed recently there's been a lot of chatter about, toxic positivity and all this. And I must admit, I get a little triggered. However, I think where this notion of toxic positivity comes from is the idea that by being positive, we're somehow walkovers, that we're gullible, naive, that we're in this romantic state of yumminess all the time and joy and pleasure. However, yes, it's really beneficial to daily and constantly tap into a permission of relating to joy and pleasure. Because actually in our history of humans, we have been nearly cultured to identify that pleasure is not a necessity, which it actually is, but that it's something that only the elite and chosen few have access to when they have time, when they have enough money, whatever. So that's one thing, one illusion, one veil we have to lift, because actually it's in all of us, and you'll see it in the slums, you'll see it in impoverished areas, you will see it with rich people, you will see it in all areas of society. There is a capacity for pleasure. However, as you so beautifully illustrated, Kirsten, is that setting boundaries, saying no, protecting our physical and our energetic space, and also expressing what we regard as negative emotions, which are actually just really empowering, powerful emotions. Because saying no, giving voice to anger without being violent, is as much part of our daily practice of being a full, empowered, embodied human as connecting to the more pleasurable emotions. And they come hand in hand. We can be peaceful warriors, deeply earthed and grounded and empowered, and also blissfully joyful in our pleasure zone, and it's very interesting. As a young girl, I would have very much fitted very nicely into the good girl mode. I always wanted to please people, found it so hard to say no. Anger was so taboo. And it was so empowering as I stepped into womanhood, I became more empowered, is actually embodied anger, and when that's anchored and allowing yourself to be witnessed in that, especially as women, is it's mind blowing, you know. In a sense, there's pleasure and beauty in it. So I really encourage you to stop separating good and bad feelings, good and bad thoughts, you know, and sensations. It's not until we own our shadow, you know, and owned or suppressed what we regard as negative emotions, that we can actually transmute them and transform them.
Yeah.
And change our patterns. Because like you said, that pressure cooker, if you keep pressing it down, even though it's there, eventually the whole thing, like a fermented kombucha, the bottle on too much, go
it's gonna blow up, and then it gets messy. I mean, if you've ever had a kombucha mushroom or at your wall, you know, it gets messy, you know. Yes, absolutely. And you know, it's the emotion, it's your mind in motion. Every emotion that is showing up is talking to you. Your emotions are talking to you. Everyone watching right now, just close your eyes for a second. What emotion are you feeling right now? Is there a calmness? Is there excitement? Is there a nervousness because you might have to go back to work? Is there a fear because your boss might catch you watch this Insta live? You know, is there, you know, bliss because you're learning new things, new ways? And emotions is your mind in motion, is your hormones in motion. Anger is showing you something. It is there. The so-called negative emotions, they are talking to you even louder because they are clearly stating that something is off. So-called negative emotions like fear, like anger, like sadness, they are talking to you loudly and clearly, and you don't want to take a painkiller pill if you have a pain somewhere. You want to look at what your body is telling you, what is getting into motion, because there is a glitch in your system, there is a glitch in your matrix when you have so-called negative emotions. And so it's really not about suppressing them or pushing them out of your life, but listening to them. And I can guarantee that the stronger you develop your radar, and this is what happens with the grounding and with the protecting practice, the stronger you develop your inner radar. It's a very quiet voice in the beginning, and we get in the Western world, we get taught to numb that voice. We have painkiller pills, we have television to numb our mind after work, we have alcohol to numb our mind or to get into a good mood. You know, we are trained to suppress our real emotions. But if you leave all that outer stuff out, if you really dare, is an exciting thing. And the mind, the prefrontal cortex, who is just there to protect us and to keep everything like it is, no matter if positive or negative changes, there's a part in your brain from old times when it was safe to keep everything like it is. Any change in the beginning feels like a threat. So if you are used to having a glass of wine after work to calm yourself down, and all of a sudden, because you decide, oh my God, I want to get a bit more real, I want to create real joy and real health, and I want to get rid of those unhealthy patterns, then your prefrontal cortex starts to fire, and it starts to tell you, leave everything like it is. And this is why it's so difficult in the beginning, especially the initial phase, to overcome those negative patterns. But again, we come to the dedication, to the decision, to the perseverance, and the embracing of the difficulties. The longer and more disciplined and more regular, starting with small bites and extend it from there, you train your mind to become really aware. The better your warning radar, your sensory system will get developed, and then maybe you start to feel a pain or an anger much earlier when you're much further away from becoming really triggered. because you might feel that your body doesn't feel so well, or you might even enter a room and before even talking to the people, you might sense, this is what happens with hypersensitive people, right?
Yes.
I always say that's a little bit the downside when you train your antennas so much,
Yeah.
then you become kind of clairvoyant. And when you enter a room with a horrible, energy vampire, you feel it immediately. But this is the radar and the warning system that you can develop for any topic in your life. And the better it's developed, the less close you get to the situations, to the people, to the habits and patterns that trigger the negative emotion. And this is why people who do a regular physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and real world practice, these are those shiny, happy people. There's a reason, because they have less situations that trigger them negatively, because they feel it earlier and they take the antidote much sooner, right? And this is
I guess
where
the protection actually comes
yes.
in. Talk about protection. It can feel a little abstract sometimes, can it? When we say we're going to protect ourselves, we're going to put a bubble around ourselves. I always like to return to that the protection is really down regulating our system enough, as you're saying, that we go more into a sense of safety, that we feel safe in our bodies. And when we feel safe in our bodies and are in that rest and digest, when we're more in the parasympathetic system, when there's a greater sense of trust in our own capacity, then we actually trust our intuition or these radars more of sensing our environment, and we can identify what are real dangers or situations we may simply not choose to want to be in, like being in a room where maybe it doesn't feel so safe, rather than reacting to minor things that are actually not genuinely endangering our wellness and our happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where the grounding comes in again. And then once we have really gotten used to grounding practice of earthing ourselves, of bringing ourselves deeply into the body and more regularly in a place of rest and digest, parasympathetic, and trust and safety, we can try bringing it further up into our sensory body, the real brain of our body, which is our heart, I always like to say. And we can really try experiencing how can we feel safe and protected when we not just are grounded, but can also start gently opening our body, our heart center, our empathy, our capacity to put ourselves into other people's shoes, our capacity to see the glimmers, as they've been recently explained as, to actually notice beauty around us. And I remember distinctly as a student, I was 19, going to an industrial mining town in England after having grown up on an organic farm, and suddenly it was tarmac and ugly buildings, and I was literally walking into lampposts,
Yes. And this is what happens.
Yes, but you can still go and train yourself to see the glimmers. And I got, there's a red berry in this, city bush. Oh, a bird just flew past.
Yes.
Wow, the dandelion that's just grown through the crack.
Yes.
On the tarmac, And this is not airy-fairy or romantic. This is choosing to bring our attention to see beauty around us.
100%. And this is the filter. Frequency is what you frequently see. It's like, here in Berlin, we have like 500 radio stations. And I can decide which one radio station I receive when I'm driving in my car, because it's playing my favorite music. Jenna is saying here, very often I have to leave the room because it's too much mood from too many people. So I breathe, it helps. Yes, The breathing helps. You can pull yourself out of the situation. You can train your mind to the positive, to the glimmers. And also, and this is the protection that really works, because again, there might be situations where is only the so-called ugly around us. Let's take the example of a huge Großraumbüro, you know, these huge offices where there's only artificial light. Let's say you're a broker, right? And there's 200 people screaming in that office. There's only stress and tension, and there's many energy vampires, and you cannot leave the situation because this is your job. Of course, you might want to quit a job. That's so unhealthy, right? But I want to give you an extreme example. If there are situations that we cannot retreat from, when we cannot leave the room, we need to learn a technique to protect our energy, to not get sucked out by those energy vampires. Yes, it is so helpful to train your mind to see the glimmers, because you might find it everywhere. And even in a room of 200 stressed people, you might find that one person who you can get a smile out of and who you can kind of anchor your attention towards. But then there's also a way, and this is so beautiful. You know this, can you all remember? I mean, I'm in an age now where I'm clearly connected with the old movies and the old series. I'm the generation of Star Trek, right? And who here remembers this image of the warp? Remember that warp field that Star Trek Enterprise had around them? And because we are surrounded by an electromagnetic field, like we were saying in the beginning with the grounding, there are electrons, there is living energy going through our body. And again, here we can learn techniques how to kind of create a warp shield around us, where we can, when we practice this under good instruction, we can decide if we put this protection shield up 10%, 20%, 50%, 100%. Because not always, let's face it, you can't build a protection wall around you. When you're at your workspace, you need to communicate with people, even if they might be not so nice, even if they might be energy vampires. You might have a boss who's a very negative person, who sucks out energy out of their surrounding without bad intention. Maybe they don't know better. So you need to stay open to a certain extent. And here comes in addition to finding the positive, to retreating if you can, but having an energy shield that you can actually fine tune, you know, like this stained glass, where you can decide if you only are in a giving state or if you allow a receiving state. You can consciously learn if you are just in the communication with your boss, you're just delivering your project because you need to speak to him, but you are not allowing his negative energy inside. And this can be trained, and this is so important to protect yourself, especially with high-performing corporate individuals, with people who are delivering, with teachers who need to deliver constantly. Also, like you are juggling 3 different jobs, you know, and even though there's a beauty in being a midwife, I mean, bringing life to earth, how magic is that? But I can absolutely imagine that sometimes you get confronted with women giving birth and being in fear and pain and screaming at their husband and like, you know, full of negative energy. So you want to give, but you need to decide how much you actually allow inside. And this is where
and actually, I don't, this is so important that you're bringing this up. And I've been doing a protective practice now probably since I'm 17-year-old. And I actually don't leave the house anymore without doing it. And I guess rather than, you know, I used to see it very much just as a hard shell around me that things bounce off. And like you're saying now, over the many years of practice, and also in my last 4 years of the shamanic healing training that I've done, and various practices over the last 20 years, is exactly, you can choose how far you bring it in and how far you bring it out. And actually they come hand in hand with our grounding and training our perception of emotion and feeling joy and other emotions and feeling the room. And actually, the more sensitive and more attuned we become to ourselves and to our environment, the more important in a loving and grounded way it is to bring these shields of energy around us, so that we can choose whether we tap into the whole room, which sometimes we may choose to for a split second just to get a sense of it. But that can actually be quite overwhelming, you know, and it can take a lot of energy if you haven't actually put sufficient protection around your energy field. But it also allows us to actually, rather than feeling all these things overwhelming us, to choose what we feel in that moment and how we want to tap in. Because let's face it, it's not always relevant to tap into everyone in the room. Or is it necessary? Or maybe maybe you don't actually have permission to do that.
Exactly. This is like Sadhguru was saying it. You know, Sadhguru was always saying it when he was still alive, bless him, that I don't give anyone permission to take over my energy field. It's only me deciding who I let in and who I don't, you know. And this is just last week I was speaking with a client of mine, and she was saying, oh my God, I'm doing the protection. I used to be the most rude car driver of the world. And she said, I would use swear words, I would use the fuck word so often when I was driving my car. And she says, now when people are annoying me in traffic, I just don't buy into it. I just put up my protection shield 100% and they don't even enter my system. And can you imagine when you do that throughout the whole day? Can you imagine how much energy you're actually saving yourself? Because obviously it's exhausting. Every time we get triggered and we allow the negative trigger, we lose energy. There's only so much energy we have per day. Of course, there's ways to turn yourself into a perpetuum mobile, creating energy never ending from the source within. But at the end of the day, we all need, you know, tension and relaxation. We all need stress and relax and all of that. So we all only have a limited capacity of energy. And if we stop wasting our energy, again, that's a conscious decision. If we deliberately choose what to interact with, this saves so much energy. And this is one of the magic keys of getting more productive, because we just don't dissolve our energy so much anymore, because we stay focused, we stay grounded, centered, and with ourselves, and we protect our beautiful energy. No, it's so important.
Yes, so this is amazing that we've had a stunning free flow for over an hour now.
Yes, I actually need to go talk to one of my clients soon.
we might wrap up to just bring it, you know, so we're moving from grounding, our beautiful protective motions. We have tapped in on how our natural environment, how nature, taking our hands into soil, bringing some beautiful herbs in our water, using some gorgeous teas like the Be Better Chakra teas, you know, or a good source of organic teas or essential oils, touch, softness. All these things help us to connect, to feel grounded, to be embodied, and to connect to glimmers, to moments of joy, and to choose them. Choose moments of joy, rather than getting hooked with more negative emotions. And like Kirsten so beautifully said, what this does is that you're creating space. You're creating space in your body field, in your emotional and psychic field, to actually tap into. So now that I've given some presence to grounding, to maybe opening my heart a bit more, to sensing what I truly desire, it allows us then to tap into our talents. Okay. And often when we talk about abundance, we may think of just accumulation for ourselves. And like you said, Kirsten, it's so important that our basic needs are met. We have to pay for our children,
of course,
for our families. We have to have a car or a bicycle to mobilize, all these things are so crucial. The more we tap into that, the more we give room to a possibility of not just working for the sake of abundance, but actually using our talents to step into our zone of genius, into our power. And when we do that from a place, not just from our own empowerment and from our own creation of abundance, but also how can we use our talent pool that make us feel so good? And we all know that sensation of buzz when we're speaking about something we're passionate about, when we really, we've had a connection with a client, we've really, even in a shop, really serviced a customer's needs because we gave them presents. We know the zone of genius, of excellence. How can we come from that place then of where we know that this can be done with joy? Yes, we have to be persistent, but it doesn't have to be that we let ourselves go as a consequence. It doesn't have to be painful all the time, or that we deplete into a pool of exhaustion. How can we come from a place of joyful service to our community?
Yes.
That by giving joy and pleasure to ourselves, by allowing ourselves to connect to our talents and living from a place of excellence, of genius, from that place we can empower our community and be in service to our community, so that we give permission to ourselves and to others to live from that place of empowerment. And something magical happens when
Absolutely.
we do it one by one. You each have the power to do this for yourself. And by doing it for yourself, you give permission to everyone else around you to also consider, to have a curiosity to living from this place of joy and abundance.
Absolutely. And again, it's the frequency, right? You attract the more you allow your light to shine, the more people can bask in it, and this is something that's also so important to understand. You work a lot with women. I do so as well. And it's beautiful that more and more there is a shift from that, everyone against each other and what's in it for me, to there's enough for everyone. And the more we empower our communities, the more we empower our clients, each other, the more, the brighter everyone will shine, and the more light there will be. This is a perpetuum mobile. We create the abundance that we then can work from. When you work from a state of abundance, of groundedness, when you protect your energy, then you work from a state of overflow. And this is to bring it back to the very beginning, to close the circle. When Nessie was asking her question, how long does it take to turn from pain to power? When you have done the full circle and have integrated all of those tools, all of those practices, and you are whole, you are holy, you are whole within yourself, and your center, your core center is healed, and you might have a little movement to the left or to the right because things on the outside happen. But when you are whole and when you are operating from this state of abundance, then you won't feel exhausted anymore. You won't feel drained anymore. You might be tired after a 14 hours workday, of course. But when you feel blessed with what you do, when you actually live in your purpose and you're giving from overflow, there is the enjoyment. And this is what we're talking about in the beginning. Then you can enjoy the exhaustment. So often I find myself on the couch in the evening when my daughter is finally sleeping. I'm exhausted and I'm loving it because I'm embracing all the things I had to do, even the challenges. I'm like, okay, Life is giving me challenges. Life is giving me opportunity to grow. Let's see how we can solve that. And I embrace the tiredness. And there's few things I love more than being really tired and getting to go to sleep. It's like being really hungry and getting to eat, or being thirsty and getting to drink. Isn't that beautiful? And when you indulge into those, it is on the surface is simplicity, but when you indulge into those very simple, basic things in life, you keep enriching your life on and on and on and on and on. And then it turns into a perpetual mobile of energy. And then you get to share, you get into this bundle of joy that people like to be around. And you know, you can even encourage yourself by looking into the mirror, and it works. It is there for everyone.
So beautiful.
Mm.
We're really, I think we're both coming to a place where we need to gently flow on.
Yes.
So I'm so grateful for every single person that turned up today. It feels really beautiful to see so much curiosity for a joyous way of living, of a curiosity and a desire to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And just to wrap up, you know, there's people in your community everywhere around us, including myself, to the Solaris Tea website, including the beautiful Kirsten Karuna, to her workshops. You know, there might be other people, other spiritual leaders, other, you know, people that inspire you around you. Connect with these people, you know, and we all have and continue to do so in our community. I'm sure you're the same, Kirsten. You know, when we need a little bit of support, it's so important to connect to someone who has taken the commitment to live like this. And this is not a perfection. You might be looking now at the two of us going, oh wow, how are they doing it? They're amazing. Actually, and I think Kirsten will, you know, agree, this is work in practice. This is
always, it never ends.
A minute every day of our life to return to presence, to return to sensation, to joy, and to do it again and again and again. And yeah, I just feel really grateful today to have had this opportunity to share with another beautiful, powerful woman. And there's many powerful, beautiful women and men on today. I applaud you for turning up. Please share your gifts, spread the joy, roar if you need to in safety, and just start one little tiny practice today. If that is making a mindful cup of tea and connecting to sensation, do it now when you come off. Do it in your lunch break. Do it this evening when the kids are curled up in bed, and just start.
Yes.
You know, keep coming back to it. Yeah, you can do it. If I can do it, if Kirsten can do it, then you all definitely can do it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Wishing everyone a beautiful, beautiful day, and I hope I see you on my masterclass next week. I already told you about it. You're very much invited to dive deeper into the protecting your power practice, and sending so much love and energy from Berlin. Thanks for this beautiful talk. Wonderful soul.
Have an amazing day.
You too. Love to everyone. Bye. Bye. Bye, Nisreen. Bye, Lafugi. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much. Now, take good care, everybody. Now I'm going to just see if I can share this with someone. So take good care, everyone. I'm going to go offline now, and I wish you the most amazing day.